let's do the run through. And again, there's not that many images, so but here we go. This is just a silent run through, so you kind of know what we're all looking at and what's out there. So here we go. All righty. So I'm going to go back to the first image real quick. And we'll start from the first image. And the title of this image is A Lady's Step. Okay, Stephen, it's yours.
Okay. Uh, nice photograph. I particularly like the range of the tonal quality. Uh, the one thing that I would like to see a little bit more of in this particular photograph would be a strong black, you know, and a strong white. But the grayscale in between, is very good. I think the composition is very interesting. I would like to also see a little bit more space over on the right hand side to give the figure uh, a better presence in the particular space. But it pulls your eye, from her all the way down, well, actually at a diagonal over to the sculpture, in the corner there. Uh, so it's a really interesting perspective, one that you might not normally see. So I think this particular artist has a very good eye for looking to shoot some things that are, you know, different than normal perspective. Okay.
Okay, next one is the title is An Almost Cloudless Night.
Okay. The stars, and the viewpoint, makes this photo become, very majestic. Um, the I guess the moon or whatever that bright speck in the upper right hand side is, that I think because of the placement pulls my eye off the page, and I almost would like to see the image cropped a little bit, you know at that point to take that out, and maybe at the point where it starts come down a bit. uh, but I like, let's see what else I said here. Yeah, I like uh, the black of the trees at the bottom, and just the vast space of the image. But that one spot up top, I think, if it's taken out, would greatly enhance the beauty of this photograph. Okay.
Okay, next one is Ancient Ruins in Ligurian Mountains. There you go.
Interesting. Um, Once again, I like the perspective. I like this photographer's eye of how he or she, is shooting upwards. The textures I find very interesting. I'd like to see a little less harshness, a little softer uh, quality in the rocks, uh, and let the brick, you know, stand out more. They're both kind of the same contrast. Um, so I'd like to see it soften just a bit. The sky works nicely. It's interesting, how at that ledge, it's lighter and going upwards becomes darker as opposed to lighter. I find that kind of interesting. Uh, I like the blacks of the windows. Pulls me right in, and that's really a good thing. It becomes almost kind of abstract shapes, on the background of the brick. Uh, Especially the one on the left side that's uh, contrasted by the brick, following that. Well, how do I say it? The same curvilinear line. I think that's really, really nice. Okay.
Next one is fence.
Okay. Now we've all seen, and probably have shot, beach scenes. Um, but I think what makes this one particularly unique, is once again the tonal quality. Um, to me, it may not be, but to me it reads, you know, very early in the morning as the sun's coming up, or perhaps, in the afternoon as it's going down. Um, the shadows uh, are just the right amount of tonality, instead of being really harsh and black. Um, and I think that works because of the way, or should I say, the side of the fence that the photographer is on. It's a very good composition. I like that it's not straight on, but a slight diagonal. You know, it's very pleasing, and makes me want to be there, which I think is good. And one of the things I think is very important in photography is, certainly the composition. It has a very strong composition. I think it's very important that, the tonality of the light and shadow are addressed. And this is good because it's not harsh. I think, about three-quarters of the way up where the waves kind of come in, you know, uh, that curvilinear uh, lightness uh, pulls my eye across the page, and down to the uh, midway almost to the foam, so I get that, reading it from left to right. Um, and basically, one thing I also like about it is it's open for interpretation for the story. A really good photograph, you know, should be telling a story. And this particular shot, makes my mind, you know, wonder, you know, what could be going on, you know, behind, you know, the either side of the fence, you know, uh, the seaweed, you know, in the corner, not the seaweed, over the big pole on the right hand side, gives it a nice balance so that the shadows just don't pull your eye off the page. So I think it's very carefully composed, and I think it's uh, done very well.
All
Okay.
right. Next one is hope.
Okay. Once again, I would say if I had to guess, it might be one of the same artists, we're looking up, uh, which is great. You know, uh, it's almost symmetrical because your eye is drawn to the bird right over the lighthouse or whatever the totem is. But you are pulled up to that point from many different angles, not just from the center of the page up, which is obvious, but I think the building on the left, the lines, pulling you out to the whiteness of the clouds is beautiful. The texture of the fence, kind of balances it off. There's a lot going on in this photograph, and all these components work well. The texture of the fence, the texture in the lighthouse, the texture of the clouds, uh, help, help make this a fascinating image. It tells a story. I particularly like, the linear quality to the whole photograph. The building on the left-hand side has all these interesting angles pulling you up and over, to the corner of the photo, as well as to the clouds. I think that is well thought out and works very well. And then it's counterbalanced by, once again, the chain link fence and the blackness of the ground, I guess, or whatever the fence is on. There's a real multitude of things happening, but all these complex components pull together perfectly to make a very, very striking photograph. Okay.
Next one, it's just a bean.
Okay. This, once again, one of the things that I love about photography is the concept that I think most really, really good photographs have. Not all, but is an important part of it is the concept of motion in static object. Although this is a very balanced and formal composition, my eye is constantly pulled around not only by the texture, but the way the texture works with the lights and darks. Very well maybe, but I like it looks like almost figures walking at the bottom, and they pull my eye up to what I can probably comprehend as a face. But my eye keeps traveling around and around and is never pulled off the page, which I think is a mark of a very strong photograph. Once again, the contrast of the lights and the dark and grays work well. I personally, for my aesthetic, would like to see, a couple really deep blacks in there to kind of balance it out in terms of the full gamut. But this abstract head or figure, works. Motion and static object. It's a great photograph. Okay.
All right, next one, just a min.
I like the expression on her face. What really tells the story is her eyes. And the eyes are highlighted because the woman's glasses are sitting, below them on her nose. And the eyes point to her fingers, that's telling you just a little bit or whatever, she's trying to say. Once again, a nice tonal quality to it. I like, the deep black in the glasses and the full range of, tonality. I think the whites on her braids make for a nice highlight that helps that, once again, that motion and static object, because I follow her braids down to the bottom where her hair is kind of clumped together, and then it goes around and forces my eye to go back up, on the other side, and I keep making that circle, which I think works to the advantage of the photograph. Let's see what else here. The only thing I might recommend is a different cropping to it. Now, obviously, there's a story because she seems to be at a microphone, you know, and is explaining something probably to an audience. However, uh, that microphone, although it's a nice shape, that shape is kind of uh, foreign to the rest of the soft, gentle curvilinear shapes in the woman's face, the brim of her hat. It's very hard and angular. And because of the angle, it pulls my eye, keeps pulling my eye off that page. I follow the curve from the bottom of the microphone as it goes around and my eye goes off the page. And, in my personal aesthetic is I don't like being pulled off the page without being able to easily get back on. So I would love to see, that cropped out. But I think it's a really expressive image and of what this woman may be thinking. You can tell she's got something going on behind those eyes, and this photograph captures it. Okay.
Next one is orb.
Okay. Um, it's a striking image. And one of the things I think that I really like about it that makes it work is, the starkness, the black and the white. There's a nice tonal scale in there, but it's very symmetrical. And sometimes it's hard to pull off a simple symmetrical photograph with a single object. But there's enough uh, tonality, excuse me, in that orb, that makes my eye go around it, but keeps my eye focused, in the center of that page. And I really like, that you're looking through, might probably be a lantern, and you're looking through the center to the inner part of the lantern. And that is a perfect detail. Without that, I don't think this photograph would work. So kudos to the photographer. Okay.
Right. Next one is Ram V8.
Okay. Um, I, as people, if you're familiar with my work, and those of you that saw my website, you saw my photography, but you also know that I'm a sculptor, you know, and this is very sculptural to me. You know, the hood ornament, and the chrome parts, I think are become abstract shapes, on this textural field. And I really like that. I like the way, the the ornament, carries your eye down from the top of the page into the V8. Um, Once again, the paint that's coming off uh, makes the whole image, because of the grays in the car itself, very, very flat and very abstract. And I like that. I like the repetition on the right side, how you have your detail of the paint flaking. It's almost like an aerial view of a desert. Uh, and then as your eye is carried over to the ornament, and then beyond that, you pick up the hints of more flaking paint, but it becomes once again smaller and smaller as you travel away from it. Uh, those black flaking paint strips. So uh, it's nice. I think I, I know this artist has another one in color, but this particular one I don't think would have worked in color. I think black and white was the right way to go with it. Uh, I once again, for my aesthetic, I would recommend, if you ever play with this print again, is to deepen some of the blacks, really get that range, of a really deep black. Once again, my aesthetic like to see, a deep black, countered by a white. But that's a fun photo. I really like it. Okay.
All righty, next one is sail by.
All right. Uh, Once again, very symmetrical composition, which I think in some ways uh, is hard to pull off, can often get boring, especially on an image like this where there's uh, so much happening. It's perfect because it pulls you to the eye of this photograph. And what makes this photograph, the clouds in the sky, and then the repetition of the surf. It's almost like clouds in the ocean. They're very similar. Um, I would almost like to see, and I'm just thinking aloud in terms of, once again, my aesthetic. Not that there's anything wrong with the photo. It's a magnificent photo. I'd like to see another treatment, see how it might look if you uh, cropped it, uh, on either side. So it's uh, not a horizontal, but a vertical, and see how it works. I think that could be really strong too. Um, the sailboat, becomes once again, like a very strong presence because of the black and white, the sun on one side and the shade on the other. And it points you up to the clouds, but you keep falling back down to the surf because that's so strong and it's almost a repetition of the clouds. So I think this particular photograph is working on many, many levels. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see, what some other croppings of it other than symmetrical might be, because all the elements are there to make it work in many different compositions, you know, of cropping. So,
All
like,
righty, next one is smoker.
okay. Now, one of the things, that I love about this is street photography. I love street images. And the guy smoking is the main focus of the photograph. And there's a lot of other people, a lot of other things happening in the composition, which, only highlight this guy smoking. Now, one of the things I particularly like, it does have the whole range of, light and dark, and there's a definite story to it. And you have a lot of different people that are interacting, but yet have nothing to do with one another. They're all in their own little worlds. But the way it's shot with the light, the shadows are what help make this image very, very successful. At the bottom, you have linear shadow from the guy smoking. And then you go up his leg, and the next shadow pulls you to the next guy. And his shadow pulls you to the third guy. And his shadow pulls you to the woman in the background. And so you have this very strong compositional diagonal, for a street scene that is very exciting. It works. There's so much going on, but yet these figures are so isolated uh, that it's just a strong composition. All the elements pulled together, which is hard to do in a good piece of street photography, especially on a busy street, and still put the focus with several people on one main person, with the guy smoking. And the photographer caught him just at the right moment, as he's contemplating taking that next puff, and his face, is just glued to that cigarette or cigar. I can't really tell. And one of the little gems of this photograph is you see he's holding and staring the at the cigarette, right? Well, if you look at the guy behind them, it's an almost repetition, similar image. I don't think he's smoking, but his hand is up in the same way guided towards his face. And I think that's a really unique thing to be able to capture. Very good photo.
Alrighty, next one. Success.
All right. Well, great outdoors. Whoops, excuse me. Here I'm looking at my notes. All righty. This once again, tells a story. It's that split moment, when this person looks like he's caught the fish and is, trying to get her out of the water. Um, it's taken just precisely at the right moment. The composition works because you have, once again, a very strong diagonal going from the net up the arm uh, to the other hand, and then the fishing rod, which although is very, very skinny, helps pull your eye up to the background. That balances, the darkness of the plants against the lightness of the rocks. This brings you to the foreground of the fisherman. Um, the shadows, lights and darks, that full spectrum is really what makes this photograph. And I liked also the fact that from the angle, it's that strong diagonal from the net to the fishing pole, and that is repeated if you in the rocks, the first row of rocks going into shore, also pulls you up to the fisherman's face, as well as the arm pulling you up to the fisherman's face, which is helping tell a very strong story. The shadow reflected in the water, makes for a nice texture and helps balance the bottom part of the composition without pulling you off the page. You know, uh, Wonderfully thought out and taken precisely at the right moment. Kudos to the photographer. Okay,
Okay, next one is Three Solomons.
okay. Once again, uh, this is a very different photograph from some of the ones we've just been looking at because it is takes you in a totally different realm. There's not a lot of detail, and it's very soft, and I think that's really nice. Once again, strong diagonal of the, I guess, flowers, uh, going up, complemented by uh, the way they're hanging off the uh, branch or whatever. And there's a lot of where the detail that keeps your eye moving is in the leaf itself. They're very soft and just a hint of motion, the way the leaf curves around. Uh, you get the motion, you get the detail, but it's not harsh. And as you travel up the branch, you get to the top of the page, and then the the top flower hanging pulls your eye back down. Uh, so you do travel in a nice circle, but very, very soft. It's very intimate photo, just hints of detail, uh, but the lighting is phenomenal on this. The way was lit and printed, so to speak. Okay,
Okay, next one, West Texas Trio.
okay. Now this is a great story. It's really a nice comment, uh, and the artist captured it very well on energy today. Oil, which we're still using but want to get rid of, and wind. And I think it's very rare that you see, wind power with oil rigs together. You know, uh, Also somewhat of a nice diagonal from the smaller windmill to the larger one. The field, which I guess is flowers or something growing, the roadway or the path really pulls your eye back to that horizon line. And from that horizon line, you're able to go back and forth to the windmills and the oil rig. The large oil rig on the right, I think, is beautifully complemented by the darkness of the sky, the clouds. Looks like a storm might be coming in, and that is perfectly offsetting, the whiteness of that rig. So I find it a very interesting photograph. I wonder, I'd like to, if whoever the artist is goes back, plays with it a little bit more, once again, to crop, from the top a little further down, give some breathing room to the top of the large windmill, but take out some of that negative sky, up top. I think it's a little much because it's a little bottom heavy as a result. But strong stories, strong image and statement about our times right now. Very good.
All right,
Okay.
now we go to color. Let's see here. I'm going to go ahead and let's see here. I don't want that, do I? I want to go back to color. So we go back to color. And there's color. There's color. And let's see. Expand this thing. Go there. Make sure I get the right one I want to use. Go there. Go there. Okay, silent run through. And here we go. And then we'll return back to this image and Stephen will then provide his sage advice.
Mike, I still see the monochrome. Does everybody else see color?
No.
Does everyone see color?
Nope.
I'm still looking at West Texas Trio.
Okay, let me try this. We are going to stop share. Now we're going to share again. All that sharing going on. It's always good to share. Okay, and then we're going to share that one. And now you should see.
Now we see it.
Now you're going to see the little bit of color, and I'm going to blow it up. And there we go.
There.
Everyone see color?
Yep, we see it.
Yep.
We're set. Very good. Okay, let's do the silent run through. Well, it sounds like a silent movie. Where's Charlie Chaplin? Okay, here we go. All right, now we'll go back to the very first one. That's a rapid run through. Stephen, it's yours. And the title is A Change in the City.
All right. Hold on 1 second here. I'm getting. Okay, dokes. Change in the city. All right. I think it's a strong point of view, forcing you up and highlighting all the vertical shapes in this particular photograph. you know, you have the shape of the column that brings you up to the statues. You have the shape of the brown brick building, bringing you up to a point and into the sky. You know, you have the point with the red brick building or red building, you know, with the uh, green foliage on top. Um, Now, all these things make for an interesting image, but I think what pulls it together is the viewpoint. Um, the Any one of these things alone, you know, could have been an interesting photograph, and perhaps the photographer took took them alone. But combining together, there's a lot going on with all the shape, you know, the sculpture and the textures and stuff. But yet, you know, there's enough uh, viewing space, I'll call it, in the particular composition so that these things stand out on their own and keeps your eye moving. Uh, Once again, you know, for me, one of the things I like in my aesthetic of photography and actually all art, you know, is that visual motion, especially in the photograph, visual motion in a static object. And this particularly has that because your eye enters, you know, and it can enter on any one of these strong shapes uh, and then begin its journey traveling throughout the composition, you know, with out pulling your eye off the page, you know, it travels and then you stop, you know, and get lost in all that detail of the Corinthian columns, you know, the sculpture on on the ledge, you know, the relief shapes, you know, once again the windows become very sculptural in the brown brick building, you know, the top of the that building becomes, you know, an abstract shape, that cone. um, I particularly like that when you travel up, you know, the column all the way up to the top to the figure on the roof, the way the figure is tilted and the hand is out, it's almost like pointing, telling you to go to the conal shape next to it. And then you travel back down, you know, that building, and then, you know, the windows become, you know, separate shapes, and the color of the red of the building next to it and the green foliage, um, you know, uh, becomes, you know, a whole nother thing within itself. I'm trying to look for the words to say about this one. Um, I think that the windows in that building, the windows in the brown building, and the shapes uh, in the marble building, you know, kind of dance around this composition, you know, make it very, very exciting, you know, and it gives you an upward sweep with lots to get lost in, but yet lots to keep the eye moving. Very interesting photograph. Very well done.
Okay, next one is a killer stare.
Now, this is a fun photograph. Obviously, the lions are the main focus because you have that one female lion staring at you. And my recommendation, you know, for this is to play around a little bit, you know, with a different prop, uh, so that you crop it so that the lions, you know, become the main focus, uh, and get rid of, you know, some of the foliage in the background, you know, by maybe going from the line of staring at to, if you're looking at your screen, maybe going over an inch or two and cropping it there and cropping it on the other side, near the rump of the lion, uh, to make it more of a vertical image. I think this could be a really, really fun, strong image if cropped a different way. And if possible, I'd like to see a little bit more of the detail brought out, you know, within the lion and the lion's face, particularly, because the tonality of it is all kind of similar. And I think, if you zoom in on it a little bit more within your crop, more of the story of this lion, thinking about perhaps you as dinner, could be told a little better. But even so, it's a really nice photograph. The only thing that I would definitely do is at the bottom, crop out the boulder, the depth of field. I think is kind of not working with that in there. Get rid of that. It's a really fun photograph. I really like it. Okay.
Okay, next one is Autumn Beauty.
Okay. This is a very, very powerful image. I mean, I like bird photos, and bird photos are very popular. But this one, whatever, with this bird head on staring at you, is really, really strong. The feathers, the small feathers in the front as you do the curvature, around to the side, so strong. Lighting on this, it works perfectly. You have that wonderfully rich black, in the head, and the red just kind of pops out at you. And the softness, not only but softness because of the depth of field, but because of the color, the kind of orangeness of the foliage, uh, the grass or whatever next to it, uh, works perfectly. Color is so important in a photograph, and this color scheme, the red, the black, and the orange, that triangle of color, and the way it's presented, sort of in a compositional triangle, makes this an extremely powerful as well as delightful photograph. Okay.
Next one is Batnap.
Okay. It's an interesting picture hanging around. I would have liked to seen the bat a little hanging a little lower. The the crop on it would be better if the bat didn't bleed off the page. I'd prefer if you've taken whoever took it, if they took several shots, this is such a strong, fun photo. Uh, if it were just a little, the bat was hanging just a little bit lower, and doesn't pull your eye, off the page up top. The thing that really makes it work well is the fur, the yellow fur part of the bat, because you have this black bat, furry bat, and the texture of the fur is soft, but it's present. And then the yellow fur, just kind of pulls the whole image together. And the background is, that the field is soft enough uh, with the repeating color of the yellow, and of course the reds to counterbalance it, on the color wheel, make this very strong image. And I love, the angle that you got it at with the two little ears, listening to every word I'm saying. So it's a really fun photo. Okay.
Okay, next one is Earth.
This is like most of the photos, actually like all the photos we've seen, are really magnificent photo. There's so much happening in this photo, and it's so perfectly balanced in a very articulate composition. You know, the lines of the leaf, both the outer curvilinear lines highlighted in red, as well as the veining inside, repeating that, uh, and then juxtaposed by the other plants in the background, the soft textural leaves, and then the blue leaves at the bottom, uh, just are balanced absolutely perfectly. It's a very, very strong photograph. Let's see what else. One of the things that makes this work so well are the lights and the darks. You have a nice balance of light to dark, but you have in the background, in the depth of field, the dark green, but yet on the other side, it's light, and it gives it an amazing amount of depth. The texture just takes my breath away that the artist caught in each one of these leaves. I can get lost with my eye traveling around, not only in the main leaf, with the red veining, but off to the right-hand side, the leaves that are coming off the page, if you can get right in there and see the detail on it. And the same thing at the bottom, the blue and the green color works perfectly juxtaposing one another, but that texture, if this light, the tonality, the lights and darks weren't just perfect, it'd be too busy to look at. This is a magnificent photo. Very well done.
All right. Next one is cannot dodge time.
Mhm. Okay. It looks like it might have been from the same car. Maybe it was a different car from the black and white. Um, the texture in this, works magnificently. One thing, the composition, I think, could use a little different cropping. Uh, if you hold your hand up, you can see the hood ornament is cut off on the left-hand side. But if you if you go to the right-hand side and follow, the black line that's right there, if you crop it right there, so it becomes, a symmetrical image, I think it'll be uh, much stronger. Because I think, the curvilinear lines off to the right side, for me, tend to pull my eye once again into the darkness and off the page. But I think if you made this formal, uh, it could be an extremely strong piece. The rust colors, I think, are really beautiful. The subtle excuse me, getting tongue tied. The subtle textures of the chrome, where it's beginning to peel, complement, the range of different types of textures in the paint that's coming up. Uh, once again, the light, the way it's lit, works perfectly. Going from darks to lights. Light on one side, darks on the other. That nice shadow uh, off to the right side, shadowing. That hood ornament works perfectly. It's a really fun image, and I think at one time or another we've all shot or tried to shoot, cars, or especially rustic cars. I don't know if this was taken at that place. I forget the name of it, where it's like a car graveyard and there's all sorts of rustic cars out there. Um, but this is a really nice, in a sense, abstract photo that is very recognizable. You know, there's a lot of abstraction to it, but yet you, no question, you know that's what it is. It even tells you Dodge. That's a fun photo. I really like it.
Alrighty, next one is drummer.
Uh, this, you know, and we talked about music at the beginning of the meeting, and this takes me back to my musical career, and that is wonderful. You see a lot of images all the time of performers, but this one I think it's very, very special. Uh, just the right angle, frontal, almost frontal, but kind of looking up. I think the person's head that's tilt back and the dreadlocks going off to the left really help you focus on the expression and the intensity of the musician, what they're feeling at that moment, and that's highlighted by the yellow in the background, the lighting. Uh, it's very, very soft. It's not real harsh, but the image itself becomes very strong and very suggestive. The color, for those of you that are really good with color theory, are the complementary colors. The yellow and the purple is what makes the image explode. Uh, I would recommend whoever took this go back and see what happens if you go down to the lower left-hand corner. You have that little triangular shape uh, that whatever it is, but take it out and just leave that, uh, purple without that little triangle stuck there, because that keeps pulling my eye over one, to the page. But uh, it's exciting. I can feel the music with this image, full of power. You know, hats off to the photographer. Love it.
All right, next one is love you.
Okay, uh, this one is
That's called I See You. Forgive me, I See You. Yeah,
well, I see him too.
there you go.
Um, I assume this was taken out of a car window because from the shape on the right hand corner, uh, which could be important, for the photographer's story. But I think once again, if it were cropped, to take that out, and focus more on, the bird looking at you, as you're looking at that bird, uh, this can be an exceptionally, which uh, strong photograph of this bird. I think the detail that you captured in the bird's face, the red, and of course, then the smoothness of the beak, the yellow, those colors make it very strong. But the texture and the head, and then down the neck, repeated, pulling you into the larger feathers, which are almost kind of blurred, uh, make this a very uh, strong photograph uh, that tells, kind of the story of this bird, that is more about looking at you than you are at looking at him, because he's coming in from the side of the page on that branch, and that stare, that singular eye, uh, really not in the center of the page, but a little off center, makes this, image really strong. And what I also like is, that yellow beak, against the green background, and the red of the hair is repeated, at a diagonal, and the yellowness off to the right side. And then the other diagonal, the green of large feathers, as you go to the face, but you keep going, but it's softened and blurred by, I guess, the plants in the background. So wonderful lesson in composition for this photograph. I love the composition on this, very strong.
All right, next one is mushroom dance.
Okay. All right. This one, it's a beautiful composition. You know, I like that it's kind of a square image as opposed to rectangular, uh, contained within that square. Now, what makes this, once again, is these textures, and there's a lot of texture going on in here, but yet the texture makes the photograph, adds to the story of what's happening, the growth of this piece of wood, as opposed to overwhelming the photograph. The color is just subtle enough. I'd almost like to see, the the darkness of the uh, black big piece of wood. That's the background, made just a tad blacker. To really help offset the orange and yellow of the mushrooms. Um, I think taking this photograph, noticing it to take a photograph. Uh, uh, there's some wonderful things happening because if you start in, let's say, in the bottom left-hand corner, you have that strong grain in the black that pulls you into the circular uh, part of the wood, which might be a stump or something, and then fans out in that circle and intersects with the mushrooms with kind of repeated textures almost as it goes off to the side, and then your eye comes back again. Uh, uh, very, very strong photograph. Let's see. Okay, let's move on.
All right, the next one is, well, it says on offer. Maybe it's an offer, but on offer.
Right. Okay. An interesting composition. Um, I think, the trash can, whatever in there, right up front, off to the side, forms that diagonal, pulling you directly into uh, the figure in the window of, I don't know what it is, booth, the store, or something. I'd like to see, a little bit more stronger darkening or brightness of the red in the woman's dress to help really suck you in to focus on her because she kind of the top part of her kind of gets lost because of the glass, uh, but it's telling a story definitely, and there's a lot of questions to be asked. Of what's going on, in this particular story of what's happening. But it's fascinating because my eye keeps traveling around. Uh, I almost would like to see another version of this. See what happens if you crop the sign out. The sign, gives it the title, um, but it's a strong diagonal that pulls me off in that corner, and especially, you know, it looks like there's obviously something else being said on the sign. Maybe the word shop or something. But it just keeps pulling my eye every time I go up there off, and I think the picture is strong enough without it. Kind of crop it at the top of the the booth or whatever that is, and down could be a really, really uh, strong or even photograph. Uh, it makes me wonder, like in the story, what the green things at the feet of the woman are, and the color, if that green or the gold or yellow in there were also a little bit stronger, it helped pull me into that booth or window a little bit more. But really fascinating image. Okay.
Right. I wrote down the phone number on the left in case any of you wish to order something from this shop, so don't worry about it. Anyway, the next one is Outlier.
All right. All right. This is you know, a wonderful lesson in lighting and exposure. You know, looking down at the oranges and the one lime, you know, it's perfect. And it's almost, you see, you know, the green, you know, off in the lime. But what makes it so special is that green is repeated in each one of the oranges, you know, where it was picked, you know, the little buttons. That works. Now, it was lit, and there's a nice highlight to give the oval of each piece of fruit uh, and that nice glint of light, but it's not overwhelming. You know, it could be, you know, almost too much, but it works perfectly. Everything is perfectly balanced, you know, black background, you know, the color coordination, you know, this is another example with a great formal composition. You know, I don't know if this person, you know, has ever done any or works in product photography, but this is a perfect example of the way photography should be, taking something and really uh, showing it at its best. You know, every every element of this, you know, light, shadow, color, you know, composition, you know, visual motion are all perfect in this. Very good.
Okay, next one is Tropic Beauty.
Okay. The bird is fascinating, you know, fascinating creature. Um, the depth of field, you know, I think detracts a little bit from the photograph um, with the red, whatever line, diagonal line, and the green, I guess, plant in front of it. Um, I'd almost like to see this photograph taken from a little further back so that uh, the things aren't quite the red and the green plant, those two diagonals aren't blurred as much. But the detail in the bird itself is phenomenal. That red eye against the blue uh, texture of the feathers, you know, against, you know, the green and the blurred background is fantastic. Uh, but those diagonals pull my eye off the page. I hope whoever took this got some other angles of this bird. Okay,
Next one is Water Glass.
okay, this is a great one. Once again, nice diagonal composition. The glass, all right, uh, the strong part of the bottom of the glass, you know, with the reflections in the glass itself, uh, set the tone of that curvilinear shape that's repeated with the shadow and the reflection of what I guess whatever is in the glass. Uh, it's an excellent warm color scheme. You know, the red, I guess, tablecloth, and then the yellowness of what's ever in the glass or the way it's being lit, giving it that texture on the tablecloth. I mean, in the shadow, you can see the texture of the tablecloth, and your eye travels around all the different shapes, and it becomes very, very exciting, you know. And then the redness of the tablecloth itself, you know, outside the shadow is uh, not as very soft. And I think, you know, the texture of the shadow and the softness of the tablecloth itself help make for a very, very strong image it's very uncommon to see a shot like this, where usually if you see a shadow from a glass, it's a shadow, but to pick up the subtleties and all the shape that's going on makes this very, very special. Great eye. Okay.
All right, next one is West Fork flowing full. Say that 5 times in a row, real fast. Amy. West
Right.
flowing full.
All right. And this one, I would say, is a photographer's lesson in composition. I mean, this is abstract, but yet you know what it is. I mean, there's so much motion and texture to it, and every bit of it works. You know, uh, pulling your eye, you know, uh, down and in different directions. With the flow of the water and the shapes that are made. The at the bottom you have the light, very lightness. The bubbles are splashing water. Then you go up to it almost looks like something other than water, like it's very sculptural, I guess is what I'm trying to say. The way it becomes darker and light, and then the subtle texture of the green of the water flow, and I mean just every element of this uh, keeps my eye moving, and I don't get tired. I don't go off the page. I just want to keep looking at it over and over again. Every time, when I was looking at it prior to this, and now looking at it and talking about it, it's just so exciting, wonderful. Uh, White highlights, every element of this photograph pulls together. One of the things about making photography or any piece of art is art, you know, has a lot of different components to it. A photograph has, things we talked about, the composition, the color of the story, the light and the shadow, the motion, the subject matter, uh, all those things are happening like a perfectly fit puzzle. If you pull things out, you would know something is missing because it fits tightly together like a puzzle piece, all these different elements. Wonderful, wonderful composition. Well done.
Okay, next one is working hard.
I like this photograph a lot. Uh, this tells a very magnificent, you know, story. You know, we don't really know what the story is, but it alludes to some things. And once again, the elements to this photograph all fit together perfectly. You have the child, pushing, I guess it's a boat, into the water, and that strong diagonal that you follow, and the way the photograph is cropped, you know, uh, very elongated, helps enhance that diagonal. You have a nice texture, that you get lost in the child's uh, clothing, all those leaves. And, I could just stare at that child photo of the part of the child, seeing what's happening. Uh, you have the rope off the left-hand side following the line of the child into the boat right up into the corner. And I think that's a nice visual element helping complement that. This is the painted shapes, I don't know what they are, behind the child in a row. Now, my recommendation on this might be to crop it just a little bit, to maybe take where the fishtail is on the left-hand side, that pulls your eye off the page, and crop it right at the end of that fishtail. And then I think this would be the uh, perfect composition. You know, the just enough color, with the yellow and the red of the boat, and the blue, you have that red, yellow, and blue, those primary colors that are making this whole photograph absolutely pop. And then the subtlety of the turquoise of the rope and the shape, you know, you have the shape of the rope, you have the shape of the top of the dock or whatever, also following that same diagonal. And it doesn't carry my off the page because behind it is that strong yellow shape, the green in it, that I stop there and it pulls me back down. The just every element of the photograph, works. Fabulous photo. Very
All
well.
right, is that all for you, Stephen? Do you have any more comments about this one? Didn't mean to cut you off
No,
there.
no, 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 that's fine.
All righty, well, let's go ahead and announce the winners. We have a first, second, and third. We're going to start with third with color, since I already have color popped up. And you're looking at third place. This particular image here by Mr. Ken Anderson. Is Ken Anderson in the room?
Ken's not here, and he should be. He's going to be embarrassed when I tell him about all this.
Yeah, that's Ken Anderson. He's been a member for quite a while. And he's really good at capturing sublime things.
He was formerly an assistant dean or something at Oxford College of Emory University.
No.
He's a philosopher.
And so, but he quit doing that a couple of years ago. So that tells me he, unlike some deans, he's probably not in hiding at the moment. Okay.
Anyway,
fabulous eye.
Let's go to second place. I'm not sure which one it is. I know what it is, but I'm going to kind of throw you off for a loop. Second place goes to Mr. Daryl Neal. And third.
Well, I think that Steve did a fine job of talking about this. Those were all the things that I liked. It was taken at the Atlanta Botanical Garden in one of their buildings. I was photographing other things, and I turned around, and they had many plants on top of a table, and they were all clustered together. I looked at this thing, and I said, my gosh, first it reminded me, you remember the movie Alien?
Oh, yeah.
So they know how they gestated out of people's chests and popped out? Gory.
I wouldn't be thinking of Alien looking at this picture, but you're okay with that.
And I saw this organic thing just kind of bursting out in front of me. And I spent a good bit of time because of the lighting in the room. I had to do some post-processing to get rid of. It's still a bit, the bright areas are still brighter, and I'd like to have them. But other than that, I really liked all the textures and colors, and I think the word organic is the way I look at it.
And it's a beautiful color palette. That's what I like about it.
Mm-hmm.
Really a very pleasing color palette to the eye.
They're all cool colors, which is what helps
Yes.
make it, the greens and the blue is soft. There's just enough yellow in it to set the temperature, give it a little bit of warmth.
Yeah, very well done as usual. Daryl does these kinds of things quite well. In first place goes to, guess who? Drummer by Ken Anderson.
See, again, I'm going to tell him. I'm curious about where did he take this picture. He traveled around the world when he was an academic dean. Other than that, he's professor of philosophy.
In Atlanta, for all we know.
I'm curious where this was, but it really has atmosphere to it.
Yeah, I think I agree. This is definitely a blue ribbon winner as well. It reminds me of some of the shots I got in Cuba.
Yep.
So that lighting.
Could be he's been to Cuba.
Yeah, maybe that's where he took it. I don't know, but I got some shots very similar to this.
Well, if that's the case, I'm going to be doing a early next year trip to Cuba.
Oh.
And so it makes me even more excited.
Yeah, the Copacabana is where I got shots. I mean, they were dancers, but it's the same kind of lighting intensity.
Well, Steve, I'll have to have you talk with Mark McElhenney. He's been there about 3 times.
Oh, wow.
And he really raves about the photographic possibilities.
All right, so what I'm going to do is I have to share a screen again, apparently, to get what I want. So I'm going to stop and just go back. Let me see here. I gotta get the mono showing up here. Fine. Okay, let's go to share. Go there. Go share. And then go ahead to this one. Okay, let's go ahead and go show the winners of the monochrome. And third is gonna go to, who knows which one it is? Who's third? Who's first? Oh, third place, Ken Anderson. This is the best I think he's ever done in a
It
competition.
is.
Yeah, without a doubt. Fence by Ken Anderson. Again, who wants to pretend to be Ken?
Yeah. He's just Ken, huh? I
Yeah,
couldn't resist. I
yeah,
couldn't resist. For
yeah.
those of you who saw the movie.
This is
I
appealing. Very appealing.
just like to say it's about time Ken is getting a bunch of ribbons because he's been very patient with this. But
Right.
you know, I've always liked his stuff, and
Yeah.
I'm glad he's seeing some ribbon
That
wise
drummer
success.
that drummer one was different for him because he tends to pick. Well, I must tell you, his area of philosophy is existentialism. So he tends to pick photos that are often kind of Spartan.
Yeah,
This one falls in
minimalism.
that category.
Yeah, minimalism for sure.
Minimalist. Mm-hmm.
I mean, the only thing I would have done with this, I love the shot. I think it's just I like the fact it's simple, but yet he made something simple really interesting, which he's good at. But I just think it's a little bit, I like a little less white in the background, but just a little softer on the whites. That's, you know, that a little bit more contrast. But again, that's an aesthetic thing for me, a little bit of contrast in the shadows. That's just an aesthetic thing for me. I like a lot of contrast in black and white when, you know, it's appropriate. But otherwise, Ken's very good at taking a simple subject and making it interesting and seeing things a lot of people would otherwise miss. So anyway, second place. Let's see where we're going to go with second place here. I like this one, that one.
Yeah, I want to ask about that one.
Yeah, that's by Oleg. That's a very nice one. Second place goes to Bingo. It's Just a Bean by Emily. Good, congratulations.
Emily, what
Second
is
ribbon.
this?
So this is the Chicago bean.
Right, yeah. That's what I said.
Oh,
Yep.
Sculpture.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I know where it is. I know she's talking about Chicago. It's but she really took it differently than most people would take it.
Yeah.
So
You're under it.
I'm at like one corner of it actually. So I kind of scooched up underneath this like one little corner that was there.
Steve probably knows a sculptor who did that. Do you know that?
Yeah, I've been there. I've seen it. I really like his work. Of course, at the moment, his name's escaping my.
Yeah, that's the problem I have too at the moment.
Right, but yeah, yeah, he's one of the giants of the 20th century
yeah,
in terms of the sculpture world.
yeah, I really like the mysterious figures in the foreground, in the lower part. They're mysterious.
Yes.
They almost look ghostly.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, you know, most people wouldn't know what it is, but it has a ghostly look to it. That's what appeals to me. And I don't know, Emily, I don't know if you were taking that, but if I was taking it, I kind of look for a nice little, like a pattern of interest with figures. You just don't want one person, you just got a nice 3 and then 5 group or whatever. I would have been just waiting just for the right combo with the people in it.
Yeah, I stood there for a long time. People
Yeah,
were wondering about me.
that says a lot about your patience as a photographer, which is patience and photography are critical. If you don't have patience, you're never going to be a good photographer. So very good.
These actually are people out there wandering around.
Right.
Yeah.
But she was waiting for the right mix that was appealing. She did a good job waiting.
First thought I had when I saw it, I said, this is a trick with the computer, you know, duplicating left and right. But it's not.
Nope.
They're not duplicates.
No. But, you know, I do that. I shoot, I do that all the time. I just wait for the right moment. If I get lucky and just shoot it when I think it's right, just don't shoot it. You wait for the right moment in these circumstances. And congratulations, Emily, on a great shot. Very interesting. Okay, let's go to first. First place is, let's see, what's first? That guy on the right is, I want to mention this one. The juxtaposition between the smoker and that really healthy guy on the right is what gets me. He's like, almost looks like the perfect exuberance of health. Then you got the guy on the left who doesn't give a shit.
I
That's what
I
interests
carried
me
away
about it.
exactly what Steve said. They were all in their own little worlds.
Yeah, but just the juxtaposition between the healthy guy and the guy on the right. It's like almost Superman on the right.
Yeah.
You got this guy, oh, what the hell? I'm smoking, it doesn't matter anymore, kind of thing. I kind of like that. But anyway, this is first. Jim Harrison, Distinguished Master Photographer,
Jim,
Jim Harrison.
Yeah, this
Texas?
is out in West Texas. Closest town would be Stanton, and it's pretty flat, everywhere out there. But this particular area has a lot of cotton as well, and also a lot of windmills. And of course, the whole area has lots of oil wells. So, but it's really the only place where you have that those three things coming together: the wind power, the oil, and the cotton. So you can take the title a couple of different ways: the two windmills and the pump jack, or the windmills, pump jack, and cotton. So that's the two ways to think about the trio.
I would call it 3 centuries. The 19th century is the cotton. The 20th century is the oil rig. And the 21st century, the windmills.
Yeah, in terms of time, that's another good way to look at it. I thought about cropping the top a little bit, but when you're out in West Texas, most of what you see is sky, so I just included it. So,
is that a contrail up there? I thought you might.
It is. It is. I thought about excluding that, but it complemented the diagonal between the two windmills, so I just left it.
Yeah, I don't think contrail's a big deal. I don't think that's where your eye goes anyway. I mean, if you have a good photograph, these little distractions aren't distractions because you don't see them if it's a really well done photograph. And so your eye is going straight toward the oil rig and being nicely framed by these windmills. These other distractions are only distractions if you make them one. If you have a strong photograph, especially like street photography, then those little things don't matter. You don't see them anymore. But yeah, Jim, I complimented you on the last one you did with the cotton field, and I know what you were going at, and I really liked the last one you submitted. But this one is, I really like it because again, it shows a juxtaposition between our times and the future, and that's a very appealing motif and storyline.
Yeah, I have several of these that are similar, and they're going to go into my wife's office for her business, which is West Texas Oil, basically. So I've been figuring out how to. Some of them I like in color, some of them I like mono. I think they're all going to go mono for that purpose.
Oh, especially with cotton fields in it.
Yeah. Mike, can you go back to the photograph titled Hope? It's the one with the bird in the dead center.
Oh yeah, by Ola. Oh yeah, Ola. Yeah, Ola. If I see, please forgive me.
Ola, can you tell us about this?
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so just like a few years ago when I was living in Italy, it was just like kind of border between just usual living houses and industrial area next to my house, and I was just walking by, and yeah. So
I wondered, was it some kind of like a guard tower with that fence on the right? And where did you take this picture? Somewhere?
When he was in prison? I'm just kidding.
Eastern Europe? What?
No, it was actually in Genoa, in Italy. Very nice city.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, but there were also some quite depressive places there, at least I had. Yeah. It's like a very deep street, and when you walk down, you kind of surrounded by these walls, and you just see a tiny stripe of sky.
I thought Steve did a great critique of it.
Yeah, Genoa is not going to win any beautiful awards compared to other Italian cities. As a matter of fact, Genoa is where I was, showing my age. Genoa is where I was. I was at Genoa railroad station at their main terminal when I found O.J. Simpson was found not guilty. That's exactly where I was when I found that out.
Oh.
But I really love this shot. I think you actually, many of your entries were borderline getting a ribbon, maybe should have, maybe shouldn't have. It depends. It's, I just think you did a great job on some of your submissions.
Definitely. I
like
love the bird in this shot. The bird
Yeah.
really
It's all
makes
about the
it.
bird.
Yeah.
I love a lot of your work, and so keep it up because it's just a matter of time before you start. It does. I really like your collection of work. It's consistently really good quality. And I like this shot quite a bit. Good job. I just want to compliment.
Thank you so much. The bird actually is a real bird, so it's a bit asymmetric. I thought maybe I should just kind of make it symmetric by adding a second wing, but
Nah.
generative networks in Photoshop are doing a very good job. But yeah, I don't know.
But Stephen had a hard job, and in all these images, many of these images could have won something. You just have to pick something. I mean, it gets to the point where it becomes subjective, but it's just hard to pick because, like this image, so many of them are worthy, and so there's a degree of a chance, and so Stephen had a hard job, and he did a great job, and any of these images